Let's talk some stocks. We got some movers on the move, such as the domain of Diane King Hall, host of Morning Movers, joining us from New York. And it is Monday, so I think you probably know where I'm starting there. We've got a software stock, our namesake this morning, ripping, Diane.
Yes, that's right. It is. You're seeing shares of Monday.com soar after their latest quarterly earnings, posting adjusted EPS of $1.08 a share. That's better than the expectation of 78 cents a share. So they cleared that hurdle. Revenue came in at $267.98 million, also better than expected. Street was looking for $261.14 million. And in terms of revenue, that's a 32% jump from a year earlier. So again, better than expected, really firing on all cylinders when you look at even guidance for Monday. Q1 guidance, they're looking for $274 million for revenue. The expectation was actually around that level for revenue. In terms of fiscal year 2025 guidance, they're guiding for $1.21 to $1.22 billion. So that comes in to the midpoint, what the street was looking for in terms of the year guidance. Again, just beating expectation. In terms of analyst response, off the back of these numbers, TD Cowen saying, quote, "We think upmarket traction is highly encouraging, and the general availability of its new service offering introduces another growth lever." So again, that's part of this growth story that we're seeing with regard to Monday. As well, you've got William Blair saying, quote, "Monday delivered strong fourth quarter results and guided 2025 ahead of expectations." So it looks like they're focused on the positives. You saw free cash flow also jump to $72.7 million in the fourth quarter, Oliver.
Wow, got a lot of cash. Yeah, didn't realize that, I guess this company was becoming quite a powerful grower at this point. And also the cash flow side of it, I guess, is kind of the bigger surprise to some degree, with a nice beat on the adjusted EPS. So right back to the old high, 325, just below it this morning.
That's
really
right.
good looking chart the last couple of years. Did see it pull back since the last earnings, and now we're coming right back. Also fitting with the cloud sector, which has been quite strong and sitting just below highs from late January. The whole group's looking pretty good in cloud and software right now. So Monday going to give us a little bit of boost there this morning too. Salesforce is up right now. Maybe also something will help out Intuit possibly ahead of tax season, but we'll get there when we get there. Let's talk ARM. Let's talk some hardware, Diane. What's going on?
So you got Loop Capital boosting their price target, also reiterating a buy rating on ARM. You saw shares move lower off the back of their latest quarterly results, but that to me seemed like a blip in the road or a bump in the road. Some of that had to do with their guidance, which they had issued more conservative guidance off the back of their earnings. So in terms of today's analyst action, Loop Capital hiking the price target to $195 a share for ARM. That obviously that suggests some, we'll call it around 20% upside from here. They said they generated solid quarterly revenue EPS upside. They talked about that inline March guidance, which we saw, cap the price action in terms of the stock. And they point out that to them, the AI demand sector looks well for ARM and across all its end markets. They had beat expectations. You saw them have growth. You saw them post record revenue. But again, that guidance was a little more conservative. They issued that conservative guidance. They talked about, kind of some fluctuations in terms of the narrowing of that guidance. They wanted to issue, they said, a more precise outlook because of it. Some of it looked like a timing situation, Oliver.
Okay. Share's not doing too much.
No.
A little negativity in some of the commentary. We've heard worse, especially with onsemi getting slammed this morning. Like there's a real problem in chips, and they're very clear and they stand out. Very obviously, AMD, another one that's been suffering for a year. ARM doesn't strike me as being in any of those conversations by any means. Reiterate the buy. But shares down 1%. Just doesn't seem like something huge for a stock that keeps pushing $180 over the last year. What I do think is interesting, Diane, is some of the kind of Monday M&A news. Elliott Management's taking a stake in BP, up 7%, especially at a time when we're talking about drill baby drill and the price of oil going down. It's kind of a tricky spot for some of the drillers and the production companies because they might get more volume, but it might come at a lower price. This is a pretty interesting move, 7% higher.
Yeah, Elliott, as we know, likes to do this when they want to see some, kind of unlocking of more shareholder value for this. So we've seen the activist fund, Elliott Management, building a stake in BP. They're trying to push for some change there to improve performance. We know they are aggressive when it comes to activist investing. They're trying to, kind of shake up things at BP. BP has had some troubles for years. If we go all the way back to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill back in, I want to say that was around 2010 when that occurred. And over the years, it's had trouble with regard to that. It's had trouble at the top with some CEO departures. And so, we'll probably see some activist investor activity around leadership. We've seen that, for instance, with Southwest Airlines. So again, obviously the street is responding well to this. We're seeing shares of BP up nearly 7% in response to the news about Elliott building a stake in BP.
Yeah, makes sense. Someone big, someone smart wants a piece of it. Market likes that. I'm not sure how much it's going to translate into some of the others, which have been pretty stagnant. ExxonMobil has been stuck basically sideways since the beginning of the year and down a lot since the election.
Yeah.
Chevron came back a little bit, but they all got sold off pretty hard after the election. So it seemed like the market's math was more negative in the cumulative impact prices versus drilling. So it's been kind of a tough trade. But this morning, energy companies doing pretty well. Top performing sector as some of the other stuff fades off. We've now got banks red, got real estate red, discretionary just flipped. But one other one this morning that's pretty interesting is in T-Mobile, which has obviously been a great stock, especially compared to its peers. And now it's got a Starlink connection, so that's going to help too.
That definitely helps with regard to T-Mobile because it also builds out. It's two things that it does. It expands coverage. It gives it more of a competitive advantage. And it's already had this competitive advantage when you compare it to the peers in its sector. It's been an outperformer compared to AT&T or Verizon, although we saw some recent catch-up off the back of their latest earnings across the board. So this is what happened. T-Mobile kicking off this week saying it's launched its satellite-powered T-Mobile Starlink service. It's in beta mode. It's a collaboration between T-Mobile and Starlink, SpaceX's Starlink. Obviously, it's got multiple stakeholders here. We've got T-Mobile, gives it more coverage for rural, remote areas. That's been one of the challenges for rural areas where we know traditional cell towers really just don't work. It helps it differentiate it from, say, AT&T or Verizon. So that's one of the things. There's a potential, obviously, monetization aspect of this down the line because right now in beta mode it is free, but come July there will be monetization of $15 to $20 a month. So that creates another revenue stream for T-Mobile. And then obviously this gives it more potential penetration for customers and even acquisition and retention because the connectivity features, it increases its space for connectivity. So that's one of this. For SpaceX, Starlinks, it's another, revenue stream for them as well. And then just it's kind of a proof of concept. Will this work?
Yeah, it seems like kind of the biggest story of the morning to some extent because the idea is, no dead zones, no place that can't be powered from satellites in space, and if you can, plug any leaks in your coverage as a telecom provider, obviously that's huge. So, and it seems like a pretty big deal. So the 3% rally, I feel like, is reasonable on top of already the kind of competitive edge T-Mobile's had pricing wise a little bit. So Starlink seems to be making its way more, into the future and kind of making its way more into the everyday lives of people, whereas it had been kind of something deployed into like war zones and like emergency situations. So Starlink texts, that's cool. So there's SMS, there's, I don't know what the other one is. And then is it going to say like like Starlink, you know?
I know.
That'd be kind of, right?
There will be some acronym
cool.
for it. I don't know
Did you
what
get
it
my text
will be,
via
but there will be
Starlink?
some.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, I know you got my
Link
text. I
me.
sent it via Starlink.
Yeah. I see the bubbles.
Yeah. All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Diane.
All right, you got it.